Welcome to the channel. Please subscribe if you like stories about the ancient world. For millennia, the Japanese archipelago developed in relative isolation, its Jomon culture evolving at its own pace. But around 1000 BC, a seismic shift began on the Korean Peninsula. A new culture was rising, a culture of farmers and metalworkers known as the Mumun. This was not an isolated event. It was the beginning of a wave that would travel across the sea and fundamentally reshape everything. This is the story of a silent revolution, not of conquest by the sword, but of transformation by the seed and the crucible. This is the story of how Korea's Mumun culture provided the very blueprint for the birth of classical Japanese civilization in the Yayoi period. To understand the transformation in Japan, we must first look to its source. The Mumun pottery period, approximately 1500 to 300 BC, was Korea's Bronze Age, a time of dramatic social and technological change. The agrarian foundation. The Mumun people were master agriculturalists. They practiced intensive, settled wet rice farming, constructing sophisticated paddy fields with complex irrigation systems. They also cultivated millet and barley. This agrarian surplus was the bedrock of their society, allowing for population growth and social stratification. The technological edge. Metallurgy. The Mumun period is synonymous with the dawn of bronze metallurgy on the Korean Peninsula. They didn't just copy Chinese models, they developed their own distinct, sophisticated style. The most iconic artifacts are the Liaoning-style bronze daggers, ritual objects of stunning beauty and symbolic power, and various bronze tools and ornaments. Their mastery over fire and metal set them apart. A society poised for expansion. This combination of reliable agriculture and advanced metallurgy created a dynamic, confident society. Villages grew larger. Evidence of social hierarchy appears in the form of elaborate burials with precious grave goods. The Mumun culture was not stagnant. It was innovative, expansive, and technologically superior. It was a civilization reaching its maturity, and its influence naturally began to spread across the natural corridor to the islands of Japan. This was not a single organized invasion. It was a slow, relentless process of cultural osmosis, happening over hundreds of years through multiple channels. The Tsushima Gateway. The most direct and significant route was via the Tsushima Strait. The islands of Tsushima and Iki acted as stepping stones, the first contact zones where Mumun and Jomon cultures initially met and mingled. From there, the new ideas and technologies made landfall on Kyushu, the southernmost main island of Japan, which became the cradle of the Yayoi culture. The nature of contact. Was this a peaceful exchange or a violent replacement? The evidence suggests a complex mix. Migration. Genetic studies show a significant influx of Korean Peninsula DNA into the Japanese gene pool, starting precisely in the Yayoi period. This was a movement of people. Trade and exchange. Valuable goods like bronze arrowheads, jewelry, and raw materials would have been traded along these coastal routes. Knowledge transfer. The most crucial export was not objects, but knowledge. The intricate know-how of bronze casting, the agricultural calendar for rice, and the techniques for building irrigation canals. This technology package was so revolutionary that it gave its bearers an immense advantage, leading to its rapid adoption and spread, whether through peaceful means or by displacing the older Jomon way of life. The influence was not a vague inspiration. It was a direct, tangible transfer of specific technologies that formed the very foundation of Yayoi life. 1. The wet rice farming complex. The Yayoi didn't just adopt rice, they adopted the entire Korean Mumun system. This included the construction of paddy fields with built-up bunds, sophisticated irrigation technology using canals, weirs, and water gates, the specific tools for cultivation, like stone reaping knives with perforations, which are direct copies of Korean prototypes. 2. The metallurgical revolution. This was the game changer. The Yayoi initially cast identical copies of Korean bronze weapons, but soon they began to adapt them, creating uniquely Japanese objects. The Korean ritual dagger evolved into the Japanese ritual halberd, hoko, and spearhead. Later, the Yayoi would channel their bronze into entirely new shamanistic forms, like the famous dotaku bells. But the foundational technology of smelting, alloying, and casting was a Korean import. 3. The potter's wheel and kiln. The Jomon created stunning, hand-coiled, rope-patterned pottery fired in open pits. The Mumun culture introduced the slow potter's wheel and enclosed kiln firing. This allowed for the mass production of thinner, harder, more standardized and functional pots, the classic red-burnished Yayoi ware. This was a shift from artisanal spiritual art to efficient, utilitarian production, mirroring the shift in society itself. 4. Social and architectural imports. Even settlement patterns changed. The Yayoi began building raised-floor granaries, takayuka shiki, to store their rice, an architectural style prevalent in Korea. More importantly, the very concept of a sedentary, stratified society led by a chieftain class, which managed agricultural surplus and controlled bronze ritual objects, was a Mumun import. The arrival of Mumun culture did not result in a simple Korean Japan. What emerged was a unique, hybrid civilization, the Yayoi, that blended imported technologies with native Jomon traditions. Regional variations. The Eastern Frontier. The influence was strongest in Western Japan, Kyushu, Shikoku, Kansai, closest to Korea. As the Yayoi package spread eastward, it encountered stronger Jomon resistance and adaptation. In Eastern Japan, Kanto, Tohoku, we see a slower adoption of rice agriculture and the persistence of Jomon pottery styles and spiritual practices for much longer. This created a cultural gradient across the archipelago. The Jomon substrate. The Jomon legacy did not vanish. It lived on in the spiritual life of the Yayoi people. Jomon beliefs in animism, nature spirits, kami, and certain ritual practices were woven into the new agricultural society. The Japanese reverence for mountains, rocks, and trees, so central to Shinto, has its deep roots in the Jomon world, not the Mumun. The Yayoi period was a melting pot, where Korean technology fused with Jomon spirituality to create something entirely new. From Mumun to Yayoi to Yamato. The technologies imported from Korea created the conditions for the next great leap in Japanese history. The social stratification, agricultural surplus, and metal weapons of the Yayoi period set the stage for the emergence of powerful chiefdoms. These would eventually consolidate into the Yamato state in the following Kofun period, the direct predecessor of the Japanese imperial line. The bridge built by the Mumun migrants ultimately led to the birth of the Japanese nation. The relationship between Korea and Japan has been complex and often difficult throughout history. But the deep archaeological record tells an older, more foundational story, one of shared innovation and inseparable connection. The Mumun period of Korea was not merely a neighbor to the Jomon period of Japan. It was its direct catalyst. The bronze, the rice, the social structures, these were the gifts that launched Japan into the stream of world history, ending its long isolation. The story of the Yayoi transformation is a powerful reminder that no civilization is an island, entire of itself. Cultures are born from conversation, from exchange, and from the brave journeys of people across narrow seas. The first and most important of these conversations for Japan was the one it held with the kingdoms across the water. A conversation that started with a seed of rice and the glow of molten bronze, and forever changed the destiny of the islands. This deep connection raises fascinating questions. How do we balance the idea of a unique Japanese identity with these foundational foreign influences? What other secrets do the shared archaeological sites between Korea and Japan hold? The search for answers continues. Share your thoughts in the comments, and if you're fascinated by these untold connections of the ancient world, subscribe for our next journey into the past.